Covering news where you live, 5 News at 10 starts right now. It's one of the most talked about stories of the summer, the E. coli outbreak that left a University of Arkansas student fighting for her life. Now we're going to explain just how E. coli ends up on your food, why it's a common problem in America. Earlier this month, we brought you the exclusive sit-down interview with the mother of one of the U of A students who was on dialysis after she was severely sickened with E. coli. Now we're hearing from that student's attorney, who is also featured in the Netflix documentary about foodborne illnesses. I talked with him about what the public should know about E. coli outbreaks in food and what he thinks should be done to prevent it from happening in the first place. If you've watched Poisoned, The Dirty Truth About Your Food on Netflix, then you'll recognize Bill Marler, a food safety lawyer. His clients include children and adults severely sickened from foodborne illnesses such as E. coli.
Cut fruit, cut cantaloupe.
He also represents some patients sickened from the August E. coli outbreak in Fayetteville. Marler says E. coli contamination typically happens right at the source, on the farm.
So the way this pathogen gets onto leafy greens is usually by water. So the water is contaminated and then it's used to irrigate these fields.
He says it's caused by cross-contamination. All it takes is water that's been contaminated by cow droppings to be sprayed on a produce farm or animals walking through the fields. Marler adds that it doesn't matter if you're washing the produce or buying it already triple washed.
Once that pathogen gets onto the leafy green, it's really hard to get off. And the other thing you have to remember is that 50 bacterium are enough to kill you, and 100,000 of them would fit on the head of a pin.
That's because those pieces of lettuce in the bag could be from hundreds of different lettuce heads.
Because there's no kill step for lettuce. You don't cook lettuce. A lot of the fresh fruits and vegetables we eat, we don't cook first. So there's no kill step. It's not like a hamburger or a steak where you're, cooking that hamburger and you're killing that bacteria. So consumers really rely on farmers and processors to make sure that the product doesn't become contaminated with E. coli somewhere in the system.
Marler advocated for change in the 90s after hundreds of people became sick and 4 children died from contaminated and undercooked burgers at a fast food restaurant. Now, regulations after that massive E. coli outbreak help prevent future ones from happening with beef. Marler believes it's absolutely possible to create similar rules with produce by testing the water used on farms for E. coli.
Tests are very cheap, and they're getting cheaper as technology advances. If a farmer's comfortable in knowing their water supply is likely not contaminated, for example, if they're using potable water from the city, the city tests their water. If it's irrigation water, a lot of big operations and small operations are doing random testing, and it's also very cheap insurance to make sure you're not producing products that's going to sicken and kill your consumer.
Congress would need to create regulations for the FDA and the USDA to follow.
Right now, the government is not allowed to go onto that farm to test the animals, to test the animal feces, even following an outbreak.
Marler says lobbyists for the food industry sometimes dissuade Congress from creating new laws.
And so a lot of these outbreaks sort of stop at the fence of where the farm is. And so a lot of times when these outbreaks are announced, they're like, well, we're not really sure what happened. But, everybody in like the leafy green industry, everyone in science, everyone understands exactly what happened.
But for farmers, regulations like these aren't just a bunch of red tape. It means they're spending money to test for pathogens, and if there's a problem, they might lose a significant amount of money if they have to throw away a lot of product. Marler says he understands their arguments, but he believes it's still less expensive than if those farmers are sued for millions after contamination sickens Americans.
They're not doing the kind of job that I think consumers feel like they should be doing.
So, if you like your leafy greens, what's a safer way to have them? Bill Marler says it's better to buy a single head of lettuce versus a mixed bag of it, then rinse it under cold water. The probability of E. coli existing on a single head of lettuce is lower than the chopped up pieces in a bag or container. Water from your faucet won't rinse away E. coli, but Marler says you should still be rinsing your vegetables. Also, I did reach out to Arkansas Senators John Boozman and Tom Cotton and 3rd District Representative Steve Womack about this, asking if they are aware of the E. coli in produce issue and if they believe there should or shouldn't be regulations around it, just like beef. After emailing all of the press offices, only one got back to me. The press office for Senator John Boozman sent a statement today saying he voted to advance a government funding bill that bolsters food safety. However, the bill the spokesperson for the senator cited does not mention any safeguards against E. coli contamination in produce, which is what we were asking about. Meanwhile, the FDA did not return any of my emails.